Good morning and welcome to day 4 of commsHERO. How the devil are we doing? So today we've got another day absolutely ram-packed to the rafters with commsHEROs. So do be social. Let us know in the chat which sessions you are enjoying. And remember throughout this session to show some love on those emojis. So quick reminder, a bit of housekeeping, that we have the Q&A tab. So if you have any questions for our guests today, you'll be able to pop them in there and we'll answer them at the end of the session. As always, drop your comments in the chat and we'll try and pull some of those out, especially if they're a little bit funny. And obviously points mean prizes. So we have the leaderboard, the commsHERO leaderboard. So by engaging, you can climb up that. A huge thank you to our sponsors. And now I am going to pass over. So never has the need to connect with your workforce through digital communications been so acute. Today we're going to join Yvonne and Rupert as they discuss how communications can enhance your employee engagement and unite your workforce. With numerous channels through which to communicate, you people can often feel overwhelmed. So if you want to ensure your employees only get the information they need and don't end up overloaded, this session is for you. Thank you, Rupert and Yvonne. Good morning, and the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Teela. Thank you for the warm welcome. I'm Rupert Coghlan from First Up. I'm dialing in from sunny, at the moment at least, Hampshire in the UK. And we're here to talk about all things employee communication, but also really about making sure we can cut through the noise for employees at where we're going. Just a quick introduction to First Up. So our goal is to reach every worker. We work with companies such as GSK, Amazon, and the BBC. But today's story is all about NCC Group. And I'm delighted to have, bringing the energy on this Thursday morning, Yvonne Harley, dialing in from sunny Falkirk. Is it sunny up in Falkirk this morning, Yvonne?
It's sunny, but a little bit cold this morning. But definitely, I can see the sunshine. You can see it shining on me.
So, Yvonne, can you tell everyone about your role at NCC Group and a little bit about the makeup of the company, how you communicate with your employees? It would be great to understand kind of the story of NCC Group communication.
Sure. I'm laughing a little bit because the last time I did one of these presentations last year, I was actually live from my camper van in a field somewhere because of the power of technology. So I'm kind of loving the whole vibe around still being able to do the virtual world. Although I do wish I was in the room with everybody as well. So Yvonne Harley, I'm the Global Director of Sustainability and Corporate Affairs, bit of a mouthful. I'm an executive member of the organisation. So NCC Group, our global headquarters are in Manchester. We have offices all around the world. And we are a cybersecurity and software resilience business. So there's about just over 2,000 colleagues around the world. They wake up every day with a mission to make the digital world safer and more secure. So fantastic team. I've been with the company since 2018.
Fantastic. And so never has been kind of the need for cybersecurity appeared more important. And as your experts in cybersecurity at NCC Group, what challenges do you face in trying to reach employees? Bearing in mind, we're now very hybrid, we're on multiple devices, multiple locations, and multiple systems. How do you combat that?
So in the same way that every other organization does, and it depends on the makeup. We have a high proportion of colleagues who are mobile, so they will be off working on customer sites, or we'll have office-based teams as well. We have a phenomenal, our global technical services team, IT provision, who, and our security teams, and like any other organization, helps to keep people safe. Whenever we do bring in some using technology, obviously you can imagine it goes through quite a number of security checks and ensuring that it is secure. So we're very strict on that, and that's something I learned as one of these corporate affairs folks that likes their technology and bringing in the latest gadget to do stuff. I've learned loads working, within the cybersecurity business in terms of looking at that in a different way, not just about, prevention, it's keeping people's information safe, their identity safe, there's all sorts of things, and as well as the reputation of the organization. So, but yeah, I don't think we would say we would have any different challenges from anybody else. We have very, very strict procedures in place. And as I say, I've learned so much, in terms of how I do my job as a result of working with our security experts.
That's amazing. I think, whether you're in a camper van, joining a webinar, for example, or you're in the office, I think, being able to receive communications, the right time, right place is so important. And, our lives have changed significantly in the last few years, for sure.
Yeah.
Can you tell me? Sorry, go on, Yvonne.
I was just going to say that, the technology has its place, but you can't replace the responsibility of the individual, the human interaction within that. So, and I always laugh, I'm going to show my age here, right? My kids are like in their 30s, but I was fascinated watching them, like, as they were growing up, using technology. And I remember the day when someone said, before email came in, right, and that someone started people talking about this concept of email. And I remember Lotus Notes, for anyone else that remembers those as well, how it would make your life so much easier. And I do think that my generation possibly replaced the conversation with technology. But then I watched my kids using technology to have the conversation, and watching them globally interacting, and their broad spectrum of engagement that they have in their social lives as a result of technology. So we've looked at that angle in terms of that from a corporate affairs perspective, in terms of how we enable conversation using technology. And you still need those skills of the individual.
That's such an important point, because we have generations coming into the workforce that have that expectation around how technology should suit their needs. And that sometimes that jump when you go into work is too much. Now, I think we've seen that change. We've seen technology really catch up in the last few years. I'd really love to know about The Wire, which is your platform on First Up. Love the name. My hunch is surely someone is behind this who's a big fan of the early 2000s crime drama. I'm a huge fan of that. I really hope it is the case.
It is. It was actually named by one of our most senior techies in North America, and we ran a competition to name it, and it was the standout one. And he today remains our #1 user of the platform, to be fair. So it just shows that. And he's very proud of the fact that he named it. So he tells everybody that, that was my name. I called it that, just before they start claiming any responsibility for it. When I joined the firm in 2018, NCC Group was a conglomeration of lots of different brands, small boutiques that had joined a group, obviously the term group, all right. NCC Group had a very, very rich history back to the National Computing Centre. It was formed in 1999 as a result of that, as a breakaway from that. So really, if anyone's interested in that whole computing side, it's a really great story. And again, the National Computing Centre is steeped in history, from Harold Wilson's inception. So just really, really that piece. But there was no communication function. All right. So when I first went in, that's what I went in to do, was set up just a communication function. As those on the call are listening, and if I had experience, you'll know that these things grow arms and legs, and that's why it's extended lots and lots and lots. But at that point, the only way to communicate was via email. And it was like a weekly email. And I was like, oh my goodness, no, this isn't going to work for me. I've come from BP, I've come from Castrol, I've come from Bank of Scotland. I'm used to having things, right? So my first call was to the Dynamic Signal team, Alex McCall. So that was it. I picked up, and I had met the company before. I'd seen the platform. I'd never worked in an environment where it was the right fit for us. And that was the first piece of technology. The first thing I did was have somewhere that people could go to get information. There was no intranet. There was no nothing like that, right? It was an email that went out. And that was where we started. And I have a news background, you know, that's what I do. It's my core skill is writing, regardless of whatever else I do in the world. I can be sitting at the exec table, but I'm still a writer, hand on heart. And the ability to tell your own story is so critical in an organization, both internally and externally, to be, to own that story. And that gave us, we wanted somewhere we could do that speed and introduce people to the concept of news. So
that's really helpful. So things change over time, right? So Dynamic Signal and Social Chorus teamed up to form First Up last year. Objectives you set originally when you went out on your journey with The Wire, have they changed over time? You mentioned 2018. Have the objectives, the core objectives of what you're trying to achieve, changed very much?
So at the heart of it, it's still telling our own story. That's what we are trying to achieve, and we do. But in terms of who uses the platform, yes, that has changed ever so slightly. There's, does every colleague use it? No, I think out of 2,000, just over 2,000, I'm never quite sure, the number fluctuates. So about maybe, let's say there's about 1,300 active users on the platform at the moment. And not recently, all we've done is encourage people to subscribe to the news that they want to receive. So we're stepping it up a game, and we're always changing it. We're always modifying it. We're always looking at it in a different way. We're kind of now saying, actually, our sales community, so take aside from a news perspective, there's the social selling, brand advocacy element of this, okay, which again was another piece that we wanted to be able to amplify our brand in quite an authentic way on social and give people permission. And that's what I love about the platform. It enables us to, here's a story, here's a piece of content, you can confidently share this. And and people look to us to go, have you got content for me to share on this piece? And you go, yeah, here it is. This is what we're doing. But then there's the other side where we've got our management population, maybe our senior managers, where their responsibility is to be connected in everything that's happening across the group. So, in that news, and be curious. But you've got a new stream that we've seen coming up, which is people who have great career aspirations and they're hungry for information. They've maybe come in from, we've spent a lot of time, I say we, our people team, phenomenal team again, right? I just work with phenomenal people all the time. It's just, honestly, they're fantastic. But they've really invested in the next generation of cyber talent. So we're bringing people in from non-traditional backgrounds, right? So we've changed the dynamic, the culture of the organisation, and people are more hungry, or they've had experience of other things that other organisations, other industries, where that's the norm, is to be curious about the world around you as well. And that helps feed them and helps them understand and support our clients as well. So very much so, you can see different shifts. I couldn't pinpoint and say that's one group of people who would definitely use it. What we do is we just make it accessible. But yeah.
That's a really important point as well, that being included in the conversation sometimes is the first step. And yes, we want our employees to be advocates and being brand ambassadors for our organizations, but we've kind of got to get them engaged in the first place and build that culture up. And that usually comes around from the really impactful comms and being included in the conversation. So how do you keep the balance? So, you mentioned kind of, we've got lots of different people coming into the organization and different demographics. How do you keep your content fresh and interesting without overloading or having too much noise, would you say?
Well, the platform's not the only conduit, all right? So we have other things. We've kind of gone retro, right? To hanker back to the old day. And this is during the pandemic. We had, and everyone during the pandemic will have done lots of different things to keep people engaged, keep things shifting. So I've done lots of, weird and wonderful things. But the one thing I did was reinvigorate the concept of team briefing, which is just basically like a memo, right? There's nothing fancy about it. It goes out, or make it a little bit, a little bit engaging. Technology allows you to be a bit more better than a memo. But it goes to every manager each month, and it is content, news and brief, so nibs, like 50 to 75 words, with an owner to help people go and search, or it might connect to another piece of content, might connect to the wire that are, our platform, news platform, or other sources. And it just encourages people about what our mission is, how we're creating a great environment to work, and also our vision, our strategy. So content linked to that, and then some other bits and pieces. But the most popular piece or category we have on our wire is something called Life at NCC. And that's where we talk about well-being, we talk about inclusion and diversity, we talk about giving back, we're a people business.
Yeah.
So for that to be the most popular category, it makes sense, because people like people, right? The people buy from people, people work with people. So we create that sense of who are the people, who's behind the brilliance that is our organization. And we just give that freedom for people to tell their own story. We'll link and kudos to the First Up team. We love this. Each month we get conversation starters for the next again month, right, around some great topics. And we use that as well very powerfully, but we use it with our colleague resource groups. This last month was Hispanic Heritage Month. So across the group, we used our platform, but we also, and I don't know how other people are finding this, about bringing people back into the office, right, and encouraging people to come together for a purpose. So we've had various lunches, we're putting food on around these topics, linking to the stories, using the content. So we integrate it all together. Next week it's World Menopause Day, my favourite, right? This is my pet subject. And we've got lots of different things happening on different channels and different ways for people to engage with that content. And it's the stuff that matters to people. So NCC Conversations is something that we created back at the start of the pandemic. And I said, what if we could just have a conversation that matters to somebody? And that's where NCC Conversations was born. But we both have that internally and externally. So we encourage colleagues to talk about these conversations externally. And we use the wire to enable people to share that with confidence and say, create permission for people to talk about these things within the broader context of the business. So you might get our financial results in one news story in 1 week, and also talking about the menopause as part of a story. And they both have credibility in that space. Absolutely.
And they both offer an opportunity to have a conversation and to consume that information and understand more. I think that awareness is so important. What's been really refreshing is that when you think about a cybersecurity company, you think, well, surely it's just all about the tech, but it's so refreshing to hear that the people stories in probably one of the most technical industries we can think of is still at the heart, and that employees are still curious about other people. How do you recognize success in the organization at NCC? How do you find the next star at the group using the platform?
Well, they're all stars. All right, let's just say. But interestingly, so again, during the pandemic, and that was another way, and there was lots of different, in the old way of working, there's big conferences, there's big events that people came together, they had their own award ceremonies, but something I introduced was NCC Diamonds. Right. And we've just run our second year of it. So it's really, and we had over 700 colleagues nominate colleagues around one of our core values and tell their story. So we don't tell their story. We allow colleagues to tell the story. They have regional winners, and they win money can't buy experience. All right. So there'll be like 6 or 7 winners. There's team winners in it as well. They win that at the group level. And then we have this really diverse group of judges who then vote for the global winner, and they win a trophy and a pin and a lapel pin, and they are celebrated there in our annual report. They're the ones that we call out, but we also call out all our regional winners using social media. So we're very proud to celebrate our successes both internally and externally. But we also have, you can tell we're a Manchester-based company, we have a wonder wall on Yammer.
Standard.
And basically anybody can give anybody a shout out on Yammer, right? And it's a really nice way. And our CEO, we've got a new CEO, and he's already like jumping in there and giving shout outs to people. He loves it. Once a month, he's now sending out an email introducing the team briefing, because although it's for managers, it goes to all colleagues to let them know. And he's kind of highlighting where he's heard great customer feedback, where he's heard things that colleagues have achieved. And it's those little moments, again, that matter. But we use Workday as our HRM system. And you can give people feedback through that as well. So there's always a route, and we encourage people just to even phone up and say thank you. Thank you goes a long, long way. So yes, and we see it. We just see it naturally happens in the organization. And I love that. It shouldn't be something that I do or HR does. It really should be something that people want to do. And they're very much, they celebrate their own success. They're great at it.
Sounds like really the exact type of culture you want to work in, which is really impressive. And as a massive Oasis fan, a Wonderwall, just anything that's all me, happy with that. You mentioned that you kind of the omni-channel experience, how we, as our day-to-day lives aren't all going to be in one platform, and how you connect to other tools as well. How does the Wire act as that front door to get people to where they need to? And second question, just to make it even more complex for you, and how do you target and make sure that people get the right information? Because that's one of the big bugbears, I think, as an employee is I'm getting communications, but I don't think they're relevant to me. So how do you kind of handle that front door, and how do you handle targeting?
Yeah, so I think we've matured on that one, all right? And we've said to people, it's okay. If the wire's not for you, it's okay. We would never communicate anything through the wire that was business critical information. It was information you needed to do your job. The rule for that is it goes through your manager, okay? And that's team briefing is there. And we say to people, even if that's your connection point, is once a month, sit down with your manager. Now, different parts of the business will do different things. So our managing director of our UK, Europe and APAC business, cybersecurity business, he sends out now, and one of my team's been working with him, she did some research and advised, why don't you, there's lots of stuff, people send stuff, you can't stop people sending stuff, right? I wish we could control the email button and say you can't send, but you can't, okay? But what we said to people is, don't worry about that information. Once a week, the MD is sending out a roundup of all the information that might have come out that week that was of operational news, right? Because we don't use the wire for operational news. It's just news about the organization. And that then helps people to know, I'm just looking at that one email and it's got all the links to everything I need. And it might link to the wire, for example, as well. So there'll be other stuff. And we really, really encourage people, because one size fits nobody. Let's not even pretend, right? So it's freedom within a framework, and we ensure that we've got that consistency of the content. What's the core message that we all want to convey? And then how do you localize it? Don't try to make something fit. And it's just applying good change management principles, to be honest with you, and engagement, and really getting to know who the audience is. What do they need to know? Not everything. I mean, you still, it'd be interesting to see what the audience think. I still get people going, everybody needs to know this, Yvonne. And I'm going, no, they don't. And they go, yes, they do. It's very important. And to who? To you, not to them. So let's break it down and really understand. So we challenge, and that's our job, is to ensure that people aren't being overwhelmed with information because someone's really thinking that everyone needs to know. What they're saying is, I need to get this off my desk. I need to prove a point. I need to say I've communicated. And that's not the way to do it. So again, it's just working with people and helping them find a solution to help them achieve a better business outcome.
No, that makes perfect sense. I think what you're saying about one size fits nobody is so true about our outside of work life. We don't spend all our day in one app, for example. And I think so our mantra kind of at First Up is meet people where they are as much as we can. If your day is in Teams, for example, let's get a message out to them on Teams. It may, as you say, pull them back to the wire, which is great, but let's not try to fight too much.
Well, we can broadcast. We've got the wire allows us to very easily, at the press of a button, say, I'm going to put that into that interest group in Yammer, because that's that actual story, and I just target that Yammer group with a broadcast, or I can send people an in-app notification, or I can send them an email if I'm really being annoying. If I'm being really annoying, I have the power on Yammer. I don't think anyone's quite worked out how to take it off me yet, to do an announcement on Yammer. So every user on Yammer gets the announcement. And I do keep that one for special moments, But I use it on Monday for World Mental Health Day. for example. You know, there's so many of these days associated with that. We cover quite a lot. So I didn't want to like do another campaign, but I used Yammer as a way of amplifying and linking to all the resources that we have, because I knew I would reach the whole organization with an announcement. So, but in Teams, we can broadcast into specific teams as well, which is great. So it just keeps us efficient.
No, sorry, I was going to say, the other thing that really caught my attention was when you're saying everyone feels their piece of news is critical. Everyone must know this. And one thing we've kind of added into our orchestration engine at First Up and is the ability to serve class news is kind of nice to know, need to know, critical, for example, and therefore that gives the communicator a bit more control over the analytics. My kind of last two questions are kind of looking ahead to the future. You mentioned there's a few people that kind of maybe the laggards that we need to get onto the platform. One, how do you feel we can reach those remaining users that haven't perhaps spent as much time as an active user on the wire? And two, how can First Up help you with that?
Well, we have to help ourselves, because we actually have to create content that people want to read. Now, one of the things we've started to do is when we're working with people, we're asking them to share their, this is a new thing we're saying, you've done this article with us, you share it, you tell people. And then what we do is we get a flurry of people. See, I've got a rule that if you're not active in 90 days, I suspend your account.
Wow.
And then you get a message when you try to log on going, oops, has it been a while since you joined us? Give us a shout and we'll reactivate you, right? So it creates a conversation for us to understand why we lost them and what we do to, and a lot of times, mostly people will just say, I just forgot it was there. And you go, great, now we can understand that we need to do a bit more in helping you to understand. And you don't, you tune out. If it's me that's always telling you that the content's there, you're going to I tune out in my own head half the time. So I'm not going to listen to me. So getting people that own that content to actively be advocates of the platform itself is a critical piece. In terms of what can you do as an organization, again, it's that probably smarter analytics, smarter, better ways of that integration to other channels, because I think there's more dynamic content that we could be doing because it's quite static. We have to add to it. But yeah, I mean, it's really about us creating the content that people want to read.
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely help you out with the analytics side of things. I think that's the point. I think it's really interesting as well that it still comes down to the art of you've got to listen to your audience, and whether that's kind of through the analytics or it's actually having a conversation. And one thing we've had a lot of traction with is the onboarding experience is so important at the moment, and therefore we've built the ability to unleash a campaign. So in future, Yvonne, hopefully you shouldn't have to kind of chase people up or deactivate their accounts. They should get an automated message, which will save you a bit of time, which is great. Yeah. So the last thing I wanted to say, sorry, go on, Yvonne.
I'm just saying it's fun when people ask to be reactivated.
I think you do like the control.
It gives me a chance to talk to a range of people. It's fascinating.
That's nice. I like that. I like that a lot. Last thing for the audience, and we'll see if there's some questions coming in. What would you advise our audience here today, dialing in from various places, in their quest to kind of evolve and continue to push employee engagement as you've seen? What would you advise everyone on the call to do next?
Don't be constrained with what you've previously done and hasn't worked, and don't be constrained. Right, anything goes. Come out here with your ideas, and then they might come back in here. But it's like having lunch for Hispanic Heritage Month, for example. Thinking about ways that you can just connect with your audience and why that might then unlock something else that you're trying to achieve. If you're only ever pushing that business message, people will switch off. Enjoy it, and just to take every day as an opportunity. I can't stress that enough. And if something doesn't work, don't worry about it. Try something else, because that's the critical thing. People are dynamic. People change all the time. But, I say this to my team every morning. We have a team 15-minute huddle, right? Or cuddle or whatever it needs to be to get us motivated in the day. And it's like, right, somebody's giving you this piece of feedback. What are we going to do differently? Are we going to do anything? Or how are we going to react? What can we learn from this? And that's how we do it.
That's amazing. So from what I've taken, and it's been fascinating talking to you, as always, that kind of the things are having that conversation, allowing employees to have a conversation, creating a dialogue really stood out. Also meeting people where they are. Let's not fight where people's working days are, and try to get communications out to them. And then there's this point around let's listen as well. On top of that, let's kind of listen and evolve, because even though communications has its classic skills and tenets, things change, audiences change, and we've got to keep evolving. So that already stood out to me.
Our ability to tell the story,
yes.
That's your core skill. And how you do that, there's lots of different ways of doing it, but tell the story, get the story right.
I've got one final point, actually around your senior execs, for example. You mentioned them earlier, and when we've spoken a bit about bottom-up communications, but also top-down. How important were your leaders in kind of really driving engagement? It sounds like the culture is really buzzing at NCC, but how important have they been?
Massively. I mean, I'm fortunate. I'm C-suite. I sit at the table, right? So they have to look at the whites of my eyes, okay? But they are absolutely, they own it. And that's the key thing, is it's to them telling their story, not me telling it. I can provide the advice. My team can support them as well, but they powerfully own it, and they understand the concept of visible leadership.
Right.
That's critical. At the end of the day, it's not just rocking up to a town hall. It's the everyday interactions, how people see you, feel, that emotional connection, how much you're listening. So I got the exec involved, the rest of the exec involved in sponsoring our colleague resource groups, for example, so that they could be part of some of the things that matter to folks, and they take part, and they tell their story. We have one senior person who told their story about being dyslexic.
Right.
And open, again, getting people just to share that, the human side of them. It helps people connect and say, actually, do you know what? They understand where I'm coming from on this. It doesn't always work. Let's not even pretend. But the fact is that's absolutely at the heart of it.
No, that's a great story as well to end up on. Yvonne, thank you so much for your time. We'll be showing you some of those new modules as well in due course, I'm sure, from the First Up team. Back to you, Teela. Are there any questions anyone in the audience would like to ask Yvonne in particular? I'm obviously happy to answer as well, but we're happy to answer any questions that are coming in.
Thank you very much, Rupert and Yvonne. That was brilliant. I love how cutthroat Yvonne is. Those things. So I really enjoyed that. Guys, where can we find you? Are you on Twitter, LinkedIn? Where can we follow you?
LinkedIn for me is probably the best. My Twitter account is usually raging at energy companies that have ripped me off or something. Not very entertaining. Or pictures of my granddaughter or my dog. But no, LinkedIn, if you want something serious. Twitter's more a little bit fun for me. So
excellent. Rupert, I guess we'll be able to find you in our sponsor booth as well if people want to catch you later and kind of socialising. So yeah, we've got no questions, but we've got some great comments. So people loving the Wonderwall. And yep, Kate saying what a lovely idea. You talked there about using your brand platform, and also about some of the kind of days like Mental Health Day and things like that. Are you finding that there's an expectation both for brands and CEOs to kind of step into that role of activists then?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you look at the Engelman Trust Barometer, the last one I think that was published, it demonstrated there's a real shift in society, that people are losing, especially the pandemic, they were losing a little bit. I might represent this Engelman Trust Barometer slightly wrong, but the thing I took away was the shift of people looking to organizations to shape the world rather than politicians. And then you can think about it, the way that we create our communities, our hubs of resources, our colleagues, it's absolutely everything. It's from environmental, it's from, the things that matter. These are real things that are on people's minds every single minute of every single day, as well as the work that you want to do. So creating that space, you can see why people expect that. So moral compass, high moral compass is expected. And, and that means I'm shifting into the sustainability section side of this now. But you know, there's that's a whole topic in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think quite a few people actually covering that. And we heard from, you know, Andy Barr yesterday about newsjacking and kind of looking at agendas and things like that. But yeah, thank you again. Brilliant to hear from you, Yvonne and Rupert. And thank you for opening day 4 of us. So up next, we have a legend in her own right. We have Hel Reynolds talking all things TikTok. So that should be starting shortly. You have around 5 minutes to grab yourselves a tea, coffee, whatever your poison is, and join us for Hel Reynolds in session 2. Thank you. And can we have some emoji love for Yvonne and Rupert, please?
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Teela.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
See you later.